The scent of Casablanca lilies was supposed to be intoxicating. Instead, it felt like a physical weight, thick and cloyingly sweet, clinging to the back of Mark's throat. They were standing in the grand ballroom of the St. Angle Regis, a space that currently looked like the interior of a jewelry box. Crystal chandeliers dripped from the ceiling, their light fracturing against thousands of hand-polished silver forks. It was 48 hours before he was set to say, "I do," and the air was humming with the frantic energy of a production that had cost more than his first house. The peonies for the centerpieces are running 20 minutes behind, Sarah. I've already contacted the florist in Holland. Mrs. Sterling, the wedding planner, said with a voice like sharpened flint. She was a woman who didn't suggest perfection. She demanded it. Sarah laughed, a sound like wind chimes, and placed a manicured hand on Mark's arm. "It's fine, Eleanor. If the worst thing that happens is a 20-minute delay on flowers, we're doing better than most." Mark looked down at her. In the artificial brightness of the ballroom, Sarah looked radiant. Her skin had that pre-wedding glow that magazines promised, and her eyes, a startling, clear hazel, seemed to reflect nothing but excitement. To anyone else, they were the golden couple. Mark Thorne, the architect who built glass towers, and Sarah Vance, the PR executive who could spin lead into gold. "You're remarkably calm," Mark said, his own voice sounding distant to his ears. "Because I have you," she replied, squeezing his forearm. "The rest of this is just theatre. The flowers, the band, the 300 guests, they're just the set dressing for us." She leaned in and kissed his cheek. Her perfume, a bespoke blend of bergamot and sandalwood, briefly cut through the suffocating lilies. For a fleeting second, the tension in Mark's shoulders eased. He wanted to believe her. He wanted to believe that this, the grand ballroom, the beautiful woman, the life they had mapped out, was real. "I need to check on the final fitting for the bridesmaids," Sarah said, checking her watch. A delicate Cartier tank he'd bought her for their 3-year anniversary. "Are you going to be okay here with Eleanor for a bit? She wants to walk you through the lighting cues for the first dance." "I'll survive," Mark smiled. It was a practice smile, one that reached his eyes but didn't quite warm them. Sarah hurried off, her heels clicking a sharp, rhythmic tempo against the marble floor. She'd left her clutch on the velvet-topped table near the welcome signage, a 15,000 arrangement of orchids and driftwood. Mark turned back to Mrs. Dong. Sterling, who was mid-sentence about warm amber versus candlelight white, gels for the spotlights, but he wasn't listening. His eyes were fixed on Sarah's clutch. It vibrated. Just a short, muted buzz against the velvet. Then another. Mark stepped toward it, a strange, cold intuition prickling at the base of his skull. He told himself he was just going to move it so it didn't fall. He told himself he was being a helpful fiancé. He picked up the small beaded bag. Through the thin silk lining, he felt a second device, not her iPhone. That was in her hand as she walked away. But something smaller. Slimmer. His heart performed a slow, heavy roll in his chest. He moved behind a large floral pillar, shielded from Mrs. Sterling's hawk-like gaze. He reached into the clutch and pulled out a burner phone. It was a cheap, prepaid model, its screen glowing in the shadows of the orchids. One new message. The sender was listed only as a period. "Thinking of you in that lace. Can't wait for our private ceremony tonight after the rehearsal. Wear the red one." The words didn't register at first. They were too small, too mundane for the tectonic shift they were causing. Mark felt the blood retreat from his extremities, leaving his fingers cold and clumsy. The air in the ballroom, already thick with lilies, suddenly felt thin, unbreathable. He stared at the screen until it went dark. The red one. He knew the red one. It was a silk slip Sarah had bought months ago, claiming she was saving it for their honeymoon in the Maldives. Mark? Mr. Thorne? Mrs. Thorne? Sterling was standing 5 feet away, her clipboard hugged to her chest. Her expression was one of polite impatience. "The lighting technician is waiting. Is everything all right?" Mark looked up. He felt as though he were watching himself from a great height. He saw the way his hand steadily placed the burner phone back into the clutch. He saw the way he adjusted the lay of the silk lining. He saw himself step back into the light. "Fine," Mark said. His voice was steady, unnervingly so. The architect in him was already looking at the structural integrity of his life and seeing the cracks spreading at lightning speed. The amber lighting. I think we should go with the warmer tone. It hides the shadows better. Excellent choice, Mrs. Sterling chirped, scribbling on her board. Mark watched Sarah across the room. She was laughing with her maid of honor, gesturing wildly about the length of a hem. She looked like an angel. She looked like a lie. He felt a cold, crystalline clarity settle over him. It wasn't the heat of a man who wanted to scream or smash the $200 a bottle champagne chilling in the corner. It was the chill of a man who was about to design something far more complex than a building. He wouldn't confront her. Not here. Not in the hotel suite. Not at the rehearsal dinner when their parents were watching. If she wanted a theater, he would give her the performance of a lifetime. He would wait. He would let the flowers arrive. He would let the guests fly in from across the country. He would let her walk down the aisle in her white lace, while the red silk burned a hole in his mind. He reached into his pocket and felt his own phone. He needed to call his brother, David. But first, he needed a drink. And then, he needed a private investigator who could work very, very fast. "Mr. Thorne?" Mrs. Saquel. Sterling asked, peering at him. "You look a bit pale. Perhaps the lilies are too much." Mark looked at the sea of white flowers, thousands of dollars of fleeting beauty destined to die in a few days. "No," Mark said, a thin, dark smile touching his lips. "The lilies are perfect. Everything is exactly as it should be." He turned and walked toward his bride-to-be, the burner phone a ticking clock in his mind, and the golden couple began their final countdown.